Welcome back to another recording of the Elevate Media Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host. Today's guest is someone redefining what athlete marketing means in the modern era. So Andrew Stallings, he's a founder and president of Athelo Group, which is an athlete marketing agency that's partnered with over 130 brands and properties. And it's built on a simple but powerful idea of community over currency. So from producing NASCAR radio to building one of the fastest growing agencies in sports, Andrew has spent over 15 years shaping how athletes, brands, and media connect. He's been featured on multiple top industry podcasts and continues to push the conversations forward about the future of sports, branding, and authenticity. Andrew, welcome to the show, man.
Awesome. How are we doing today, man? Appreciate you having me.
Doing great. We were talking a little in the green room, where we're from, Connecticut, Indiana, things like that, and how sports is a big thing, but sometimes hard to get to places. How do you, I guess to dive right into it, tell us a little bit about what you do with your sports media agency first, so people understand kind of what that entails.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I'm currently an adjunct professor at Marymount University at Arlington, Virginia as well. And that school is actually my alma mater. And part of the reason I went back there is when I was in college, much like many young people in their late teens or 20s, they always say, I want to work in sports.
Yeah.
But they never can identify what that means or how it looks, etc. For me in particular, I didn't go to a powerhouse Division I school that had a really elaborate sports marketing or sports management program. So, for me, a lot of it was navigating through communication, networking, and just my own discovery exercises. For all intents and purposes, I knew I wanted to just work in sports. How, where, what, I think at the end of the day, I was open to just about anything. But for me, what I've ultimately learned through the privilege of my career, having 15 plus years doing this, is I worked on the media side at SiriusXM Radio to start my career. I worked at big agencies like Octagon as well to understand the infrastructure, both on the talent, leagues, and property side. And then I've also gone in-house working with companies like Anheuser-Busch and Constellation Brands, doing field marketing and trade strategy to global sports sponsorship strategy. So day to day, kind of how Athelo Group started was taking a look at fundamentally where the word influencer was beginning to evolve around 2013, 2014, how it was becoming applicable to sports. Again, the emergence of the sports creator, how consumers were digesting content and watching games and absorbing the entertainment side of sports like never before. And then thirdary to that was then looking at the infrastructure of how many of these sports leagues and the athletes and teams and properties all were lacking insurmountable resources. And the reason for that is, these big, massive sports agencies, a la a Wasserman, Excel, CAA, Octagon, traditionally they were not putting their focus on, League One volleyball or even IndyCar, unless it was the top of the top. And the top of the top was going to generate that revenue in return for them. For me, just as somebody who wasn't a lawyer, but who was very well connected to several good lawyers, I knew that I could put my network to work for me and kind of create a new model, which has become pretty common actually in the last 2 or 3 years in the sports and entertainment world of, building an infrastructure of resources that can be applicable to rising sport properties and the talent within them. So Athelo traditionally is 2 words. It's athletes, it's opportunities. We smashed it together to make a funky little run-on word that, not to jaw you, but even you mispronounced at the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's good marketing, right?
Yep.
Because it always leads us to explain it. Yep. And most people, when they look at it, they're like, oh, it's Athelo, and it always leads me to explaining it. The next question is, why do you do that? Why don't you rebrand? Why don't you make it easier? But to me, I need a hook. I need something that you're never going to forget and remember after we do it correct, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's also rooted in the foundation of what we do. We're not just a golf agency. We're not just a motorsports agency. Traditionally speaking, we are still touching on some of the most emerging, rising, and challenger sports properties in the world. So to date, we manage about 20 athletes exclusively. We have a network of about 300 plus different athletes, agents, and agencies that we can tap into for campaigns, programs, commercial opportunities. But then on the other side of the business, we have about 80 plus different brands, leagues, teams, and agencies that we work with in some capacity. Some are retainer based, some are one off project based, but annually we're averaging about 80 plus different relationships that congruently we are building upon from the services of sponsorship strategy, talent management, and PR communication and support. So, we're still a small but mighty team. Like, don't get it twisted. We're not this massive, like, fake it till you make it firm.
Sure.
We started with $20 in an LLC filing,
Yep.
and now we're, pushing over 10 million plus in revenue annually. And
That's
that's
awesome.
all from hard work, word of mouth, and good, solid relationships and output of work year over year.
Yeah, and that's right there to dive into is it's not easy to get this going, right? So how did you overcome all the challenges that it takes to build these relationships with, some of these, higher profile individuals, these athletes that, people see, kind of how did you kind of break that door down to be able to open up these opportunities to, get that momentum going?
Yeah, it's a really good question because the easy answer is I could tell you it's networking, right? It's
Right.
just being approachable, being adaptable, and finding your way to the right rooms at the right time. But more so than ever, it's easier said than done because everything is equated to a value prop in today's world.
Yep.
I always hate it when people, are like, what advice would you give to young people trying to get into sports? The most common answer that you'll hear is network, network, network. And it's like,
Right.
I always tell people it's dig deep into your bag and figure out what value, no matter what age, no matter where you're at in your life, what value can you bring to people? And I'll give you a good example. I had an intern one time that, bless his heart, it was really, really good. He was sharp. He was on it, but he was sitting in our business development team, and obviously, success is measured based off of conversations.
Sure.
Again, getting momentum going on deals and opportunities. The guy turned to his very well connected father in the business and venture capital sector and started opening up doors and conversations for us based off of not only who he knew, but he left his pride in the door to be able to have the confidence to allow us to have those conversations with people within his network. And that kind of value is often overlooked because too often people just think, oh, like I'm 20 years old in college. Like, what value do I have?
Sure.
Your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
And the sooner that you can develop that, the better. And it's not just about how many LinkedIn connections that you have, but the people that you know and the people you're closest with, you have to really start being able to be confident enough to unpack those kind of relationships.
Yeah.
For us, Athelo started with me and two buddies. It was a side hustle, much like anything is for anybody.
Sure.
We had
Yep.
our 9 to 5s, like we were still doing things, playing hockey, like whatever. What we quickly realized though is, we all had our full-time jobs. I just started a new job at Constellation Brands,
Hmm.
and I was going on my honeymoon. I was probably 3 or 4 months in at Constellation Brands, and Othello was like in the back of my head. I was kind of having these thoughts. I'm like, man, like, they're very creative designer focused. Like, they want to build websites and logos for athletes, and I'm like, that's great, but like for me, there's a lot more tangible stuff that can be done, and
Sure.
I need to set that foundation for them before they can even get to a point where they're going to spend on building logos, assets, creative, etc. So it was already in the back of my mind. I go on my honeymoon, I come back, I land at JFK Airport at like 9 o'clock at night on a Sunday night, and I get all my voicemails that loaded while I was out of the country. Now, emails, texts, everything loaded while I was gone, but for some reason, my voicemails did not load while I was on my honeymoon. HR from Constellation Brands called,
No.
and it was like, Mr. Stallings, we want to talk to you about your severance package. If you could just give us a call back. And I'm like, severance? Like, I'm sitting in first class, just landing back from my honeymoon. My wife, she's like, we're married. Oh my gosh. And I'm just like, I just got laid off. What the hell is going on? So did not sleep that entire night. Of course, I get an email later that, or first thing Monday morning. Hey, can you come in a little early to the office? Sure. Go in. I was part of like a 90-person layoff. And
Right.
so in that moment, it's very easy for you to be like, I gotta find a job. I gotta find a job. Just doing what I do.
Hmm.
But I kind of took a step back and I was like, listen, let me see if I can set a super aggressive set of goals. And I'm going to give myself 3 months, which is my severance timeline. And I mean, if
Sure.
I not accomplish this in 3 months, then I'll find another job. And most people I know struggle in today's society of finding a job and stuff like that. But for some reason, I was just bullish enough to think I could find another job, so I wasn't worried about it.
Yeah.
So long-winded way of saying I bulldozed through all those goals, and the very last one was that I had to buy out my two business partners at the time. We played men's league hockey together. I remember writing them five-figure checks that at the time were very, very lofty for me. Gave it
Mhm.
to them. They're laughing all the way to the bank. They're like, "This is great! Like, see you later, Stallings." The next month I had set up enough business though that immediately I 5x my return because
Nice.
I had congruently been building up business and contracts to start the next month. So strategy, right? But again,
Yep.
it's timing, it's place, it's strategy. Much like
Yep.
networking, business is the same exact way. It's not always about, again, the biggest home run, and getting the biggest deal done. It's really what is the timing of it and how
Right.
is it coming into play. And that's what I always challenge people to think about is the timing of anything you do is so critical, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, timing is everything.
Yeah. How do you kind of navigate that with, I mean, like, because I've heard people, other successful business that are saying, oh, I got lucky uh with that timing. Is some of it luck? How can we better improve our timing on these things?
There's always luck,
Yeah.
right? You're lying if you're saying otherwise. Like
Right.
chance and fortune play into it for sure.
Yeah.
But you can't control the timing of it as much as you possibly can, as much as you possibly want to, rather. But what you can do is you can prepare yourself and you can have a plan B and C. And
Yep.
what I always tell people, and this is coming from the guy that does not work out, like recovering from an ACL surgery still, like, I am the quintessential 37-year-old chubby white male dad that just fits the T perfectly. So for me to say planning and, routines and habits, I'm the worst at that stuff. Like even as a business owner, as a father, as a husband, I'm terrible at habit development and also even pattern development.
Mm.
But there are certain non-negotiables that you have to, no matter how like undisciplined you are, you have to almost look at it as it's life or death. And
Yeah.
for me, those non-negotiables really set the foundation for how I look at every single day. And that is, I need to put in X amount of hours of work. Like
Mm.
that to me is a non-negotiable. Even if I don't have a lot to do, I need to block off
Yep.
9 hours a day dedicated fully to work.
Right.
From that, I'm blocking off 2 hours of this, 3 hours of that. So I try to look at it mostly as chunks.
Hmm.
And from that timing and approach sector, I can try my best to get an upper hand. But really, what it does is it helps me alleviate and feel less stressed and be able to like take a step back and say, okay, now what else can I proactively look on? Because I'm allowing myself to think within a wall of 5 different buckets rather than let my mind wander and like, I
Yep.
this, which a lot of entrepreneurs and business people feel like they constantly have fires to put out. And
Right.
if it doesn't sit in my 5 buckets, then it's somebody else's problem.
Mm.
And that's really, really, really hard for business people to do. But
Right.
that's what I try to challenge myself to do every day is if it's not my responsibility or if I can't handle it, I have to delegate it. And if
Yeah.
that means paying a lot of money to do it, I delegate it and hand it off.
Yeah. And that's a good thing to remember. And even if you're not at the level to be able to delegate, financially to things, just focusing on, the big needle movers, right? The things that are actually important that are within your wheelhouse that are actually going to move things forward. Because a lot of people get, shiny objects in their wheel here all the time, or they get distracted by little things, right?
Yeah, no, they absolutely do. It's you look at all too often entrepreneurship and business in general. People think it's sexy, And especially in sports,
Sure.
like my family, they're like, oh wow, like you did it. And it's like I feel like a fraud every single day. Like, to this day,
Right.
my number one goal is like, can the mortgage get paid? Can the
Yeah.
get paid? Great. Success.
Yep.
But, you get to a point where it's like you tell your wife, hey, yeah, you can make sure the Amazon packages keep coming in this month. Like,
Right.
now I feel like a billionaire, right? Like,
Yeah.
and though that mindset shift is so critical and important to understand that you have to think and you have to act so desperate in terms of money. You have to have a ruthless disrespect for money too.
Yeah.
Money comes and goes so quickly when you're in the world of business and
Yep.
especially in entrepreneurship. Like I have had days where I've looked at the bank account. I'm like, oh, sick. We got $6 million in the bank account today.
Yeah.
That's great. The next hour, I'm like, we have $100,000. What happened? Where'd it go? And you just, again, you have to understand that the ebbs and flows of it is so, so, so insane.
Yeah.
Me, I'm always hardwired to think that nothing is good enough. Nothing
Right.
is good enough, even by the standard of service that I'm giving. Even though I'm giving my best, it's still probably not good enough.
Yeah.
Even the money in return that we get on certain projects and investments and everything we do, it's not good enough. And to a lot of people, it's hard to live in that world because it feels very self-deprecating, Chris, and you're always like you're always down in a lot of ways.
Sure.
But if you allow yourself when you come up for it to kind of like reset and recalibrate every now and then, it feels really, really rewarding to know that just man, you're so down and driven on certain things that the small wins then start to become like grand slams. And hardwiring yourself to that token is it's a very challenging thing to do. It's something that I still struggle with day in and day out. But
Yeah.
I I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. I'm right there. I think it could always improve, right? What can be improved? What can we make better? What can we, do better, show up better? Yeah, I get that. And I sometimes I realize like, not everyone thinks that way. And so like kind of navigating those situations too, like still expecting and, kind of hoping to push people to their best next level. Like we mentioned, or so we talked about us on the green, I coach soccer. And so the same with athletes, like, expecting and seeing the potential in them and wanting them to improve every day when it's sometimes not in their head of like, oh, I need to improve better. I can improve better, kind of navigating that with your team even. Because you mentioned, you mentioned income and then we talked about, people. So, and you're kind of saying your mind's community over currency, right? So what sparked that kind of mantra, that mindset? Did you see something in the industry wrong? Kind of walk us through that development.
Some of the best business deals I've ever done have been a byproduct because I have connected people and allowed them to find the solution to their own problems.
Yeah.
Being a great connector and being somebody that could have the missing puzzle piece to someone's puzzle, it's an incredible gift. And
can anyone get that? Or are you just born with being a good connector? Or can you learn to become a better connector?
I think you can absolutely learn to be a better connector. I think anybody can learn anything. Like I hate the term expert. Like I still think lawyers, doctors, everybody can always learn more if they were their lawyer for it. Like I personally don't love that.
Yeah.
But for me, I look at what value can you bring to people just by your network, and network as a byproduct is your community, like your surroundings. Like too many people, when I say network, they get very business minded. They're like, who's in my phone? Who's in my LinkedIn? That's it.
Right.
And I have a neighbor of mine that was in the industrial glass industry for several years. And I was connecting him and trying to get him bids and RFPs and stuff, from connections of big construction companies that I would meet in NASCAR. Like, again, just being that connector, even for conversations, it brings so much value. Because listen, the reality of it is 9.5 times out of 10, business won't come from a casual connection. Right. But the appreciation and authenticity and emotional reciprocation that comes from that, it supersedes any business transaction. Because at the end of the day, tell me if you've heard this before, people want to work with people that they like.
Yep.
It's the secret of life. Like,
Yeah.
no one wants to work with assholes. And I'm just
Right.
gonna cuss, I'm sorry. But
No, you're good.
it's, I mean, they don't like,
Sure.
listen, I'm surrounded by egos 24/7 in the world of sports and professional athletes,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't want to be, but I also know that there's sometimes just a byproduct of what
Right.
that is. But on the other side of it, like, you have to be able to bring that emotional comfort that people who are just in this world of like just hard grunt, just firm business 24/7, they want somebody that they feel like is smart, someone that they feel like is, again, not trying to know more than they do, someone that's vulnerable enough to admit when they're wrong,
Yep.
but somebody that genuinely wants to understand their problems so that they can provide some sort of opportunity of a solution.
Right.
And again, that's what some of the most successful people in the world do. Like, they don't solve monumentally sized problems alone, right? Like,
True.
they're able
Yep.
to bring a lot of alternatives of solutions to test and trial and et cetera. So that same token, it comes from just connecting good people. So, you
Yeah.
know, for me, I would say my most successful, accolade in what I've done in sports and what even with this agency is I tell whether it's a new prospective athlete that we're working with or even a brand, I hang my hat on it. I say, listen, through our conversations, if I feel like I can bring you somebody that can provide better value, I will introduce you to them. If for nothing else, so that you have a alternative solution to listen to.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes people are too busy. Like, if they
Yep.
get introduced to the first person, they're like, okay, great. Like, I'll just work with this agency, whatever. But what I always tell people, I'm like, hey, if I can introduce you to somebody even quickly, let me explain to you why they may be better. They're going to appreciate that because you're taking out the research, you're taking out the mystery, the interview, all that. If you think through our conversation that you have something that is far more valuable and you can bring it to me and you're authentic and pure enough to do that, wow. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it takes balls, but it also, it's pretty admirable and it says a lot about your character as well.
Yeah. They basically kind of falling back to like just do the right thing, right? If you know there's someone better, or some better connection or whatever, just doing the right thing at the end of the day, I think always works out. And I like. Oh, go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off, but
No, you're good.
I will say, like, doing the right thing. We talk, like, we come on these podcasts, we say all the right things, the
Yeah.
motivational things. Don't get it twisted. Like, sometimes we have to roll up our sleeves and do what's best for business. And
Right.
business owners, and entrepreneurs alike, you have to be selfish as well as selfless
Yeah.
because this journey of, being an entrepreneur, a business owner, or anything in between, you have to balance that and walk
Mhm.
that line. So I always, and again, I apologize for kind of being abrupt, but I do think it's important because all too often we say all these great things like be a good person and
Yeah.
network and this and that. Listen, I would be lying out of my teeth if I told you that I have not definitely done some deceitful stuff in business over the years to get the upper hand.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But you have to sometimes. And again, it's not something that people die or anything like that, but
Right.
you have to put yourself in a position to win and succeed as a byproduct of what you feel the most confident in what you can do. And again, it's a heavy balancing act because
Yeah.
I'm not saying be deceitful, do this and that, but there is a sense of faking it till you make it in a lot of ways of what you do. Like,
Mhm.
I'd be full of it if I said that I told all my clients that I've had, oh, I just, I've only had 2 years experience when, literally I had 6 months, or something
Right.
like that. So I mean, there's elements to it where you have to embellish a little bit to get that upper hand.
Yeah. I think doing the right thing in, whatever that looks like for you and, um, but doing the right thing, what's the right thing for business, right? What's gonna, grow because you have to support other people. You have, your family to support. And so that right thing could be, um, making it seem like you're bigger than you are. So people trust you because obviously they're going to look at it more established with trust over, a freelancer doing it on their own a lot of the times. If you can show the results and show your professionalism and, the value, right? You mentioned having that value prop. And so I think, yeah, I think just walking that line, it's there's definitely not black and white with it. Um, and you just have to kind of decide for yourself. And it kind of goes back to, you mentioned you work with some egos, right? How do you work with these egos, like to walk that line and not necessarily convince, but get them to see the value you bring, when sometimes that's hard for someone with a big ego or pride to think they need that help.
Um, Sometimes you have to challenge ego with ego,
Sure.
and you know, it's a very unique circumstance to do because a lot of people don't like being told that they're wrong. They don't like being challenged,
Hmm.
but the smartest athletes, which I would say we're incredibly privileged to have such a great roster over the years of athletes, that
Yeah.
even the ones that have come and gone, we do a litmus test to just ensure that people really have a good moral compass, but then they also understand what's best for business.
Yeah.
So some of our conversations are not easy, right? It's like, what's best for your business? What's best for us? What's best for the greater growth trajectory of business? And those conversations are oftentimes really, really difficult to have because you have to take a good look in the mirror about where people are at in their career. What are they doing that's a little bit different? What are they not doing? Which is
Mhm.
typically the most common question that is asked and that we have to discuss.
Yep.
And I would say you challenge it with a sense of not trying to put people down, but you also provide alternatives from the upfront. Like, how come we're not doing this versus this is a huge problem? We should be doing this. It's more being inquisitive and challenging ego with inquisitive nature. And
Yeah.
again, sometimes people are like, I don't know, Andrew. I don't know what to do. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, but the other time it starts getting people to help think and process and digest alternative solutions to problems.
Yeah.
And for us, we are very self-aware that in our industry there is not a one size fits all model for solutions. Like,
Yep.
there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat to find your
Yep.
way to the end road, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
The problem is that the people that oftentimes need to solve for these get very overwhelmed
Mhm.
when you provide them with so many different solutions. They just want to know what's the easiest, what's the most efficient at
Yep.
times, which is, it's fair. It's fair to
Sure.
ask that. But you also have to think about, if there's an alternative that's going to help you accomplish one, two, three other things, or even discover or explore three things along the way, what journey is going to be better set for you?
Yep.
And those circumstances, those exercises are like, I would say what we do best is that
Yeah.
we provide a wide span and variety of solutions and discovery. I would say long term, our clients really seem to enjoy that. Short term, it probably drives them effing nuts. Where
Right. Right.
give me the answer, and it's like, this, let's look at this, let's look at this.
Yep.
Sometimes they feel like the house is always on fire, when in reality, it's not. It's just we got to slow down before we can speed back up.
Yeah. For sure. It's like we just had something like that, a conversation with a new client, walking them through the phases of, the plan that we are going to lay out based on what their problems were, where their gaps were, and things like that. And then they're looking at it again and like, well, let's start this from like, phase 4, let's do that now. And we like kind of walk them back and like explain, like, that's great, but we're not ready there. Like, you're not ready for that yet. Like, we've got it. This is the process and why. Because sometimes they get excited and, they're all over the place. So yeah, being able to have those conversations, I think is crucial and a big piece. One, to build good relationships and show you truly want the best for them and not just to make a buck kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
mean,
yeah.
business is business, but at the
Mhm.
end of the day, it's not everything.
Right. So with that too, like, you've seen a lot within your industry with different organizations and brands and things. Where are people missing the mark? Maybe if it's the athlete themselves trying to market themselves or these other agencies, where are we missing the mark in athlete partnerships here currently?
I think the term sponsorship is getting immensely phased out.
Yeah.
I think the new term is partnership.
Yep.
We live in a world of digital marketing, which, as we historically define digital marketing, is it's a two-way dialogue. It's a
Mhm.
two-way engagement stream. So, with the vast majority of partnerships or commercial partnership opportunities being rooted in heavily digital marketing, you have to be able to solve against what that engagement tactic is.
Yep.
And far too often, when we look at many contracts or deals or partnerships that we're discovering together, it's very much rooted in traditional social media analytics.
Mhm.
What's my engagement
Yep.
percentage? What is how many comments, like how many follows, this and that. And then the other extreme to it is how did this partnership equate to more sales?
Right.
And I think the big discrepancy in sports, whether it's a commercial partnership opportunity with an athlete, a team, a league, etc., is that far too often there's two very, very large ends of the funnel. And which is where a lot of brands and I think a lot of agencies and athletes typically live is top of funnel, right? It's
Yep.
brand awareness, it's word of
Yep.
mouth. Did you see my out of home ad, etc. But in the bottom is what really matters and what typically drives such a very difficult discussion on renewals and extension periods. It's what was the ROI? Like,
Yep.
what was the bottom line sales? Like, how much return did I get? And that middle part is it's like a lava lake, right? Like the middle of the funnel is such a lava lake because it looks so pretty and it's convoluted and you're like,
Yep.
oh, wow, but it's so fragmented.
Yes.
And the ones that can really solidify that streamlined funnel to go from top to bottom are the ones that can do it best. Now, for the record, I don't know many examples where I can say a partnership campaign or a partnership with an athlete or anything has equated from this to this, like, streamlined perfectly.
Right.
Sometimes it's just luck, right? So the KPIs and the ROI are always important to establish from the onset. A lot of agencies and a lot of agents don't want to ask that question. They're just quick to get the deal done and get their commissions and move on.
Yeah.
But where the real money is made is long lasting extended partnerships. And that doesn't mean signing a 5-year deal at the onset. It's taking the risk to say, let's sign a 1-year deal and let's really take a look at what the data shows us 6 to 8 months in so that those last 3 months we can make a very conservative effort to have a structure moving forward that's conducive to the greater partnership on both sides. And that takes an immense amount of business maturity and acumen for agents. It also takes a lot of maturity on the athlete side, which again, we're privileged enough, I think, in these more niche sport properties that the athletes are open and willing to do it.
Mhm.
Because, a big problem we see in core four sports, an NHL player signs a 3-year contract at $7 million a year annually. Then you walk up to them and say, "Hey, like I got this mattress deal for you to do 2 posts for 50 grand." Why would they do that? Right? Like, why would they even waste their time?
Right.
Um, so, for many of the sport properties that we're dealing with, they're not there yet. Right. And, some of them are, some of them aren't, but they're all at least open to having that exchange and dialogue. So, big picture, I think it's just, it's hyper important to always remember that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good thing to remember. And do you see with that too? We've seen some shifts with NIL, right? The name, image, likeness stuff. How do you see that, or how have you seen that shake things up? And do you see it becoming even more change coming in the next even 5 years with it?
I think there's going to be an immense amount of change, and there better
Yeah.
be because
Yeah.
depending on where you sit on the spectrum on the topic of NIL, you can't. There's one solid known, and that NIL has completely changed the trajectory of college sports forever,
Yep.
and that you can leave it at that. And from where I sit, and I've been very outspoken about this for years. I think that allowing NIL to unfold and debut the way that it has in such a way has caused massive fragmentation and widespread disarray. I think, again, I teach at a D3 school, right? And I ask a lot of the student athletes, I'm like, are you all even educated on NIL? And they're like, we're almost like kind of struck fear into that it's a bad thing, that it's like more problems than good, because many of these universities are not equipped to take on the volume and again, just opportunities that can kind of spiral out of control with them at scale. Um, the reality of it is the money's going to go traditionally where it's always gone, which is football and basketball. Everybody else is going to be sold, and they are being sold this vanity that, you know, the 11th best swimmer at Duke should be the face of Red Bull, and it's just like it's not feasible. It's not sensible. There's no center of excellence demanding or communicating, what's right, what's wrong, what's ethical, what's not, and then also what's real expectations and not. The collectives amongst many of the universities change, and their bottom line to get fundraising in again has priority structure. So, again, are the top lacrosse players in the women's game going to be looked at and given the same support as the men's college football team? I mean, listen, I don't think that you can necessarily say that the answer is yes.
Right.
If you want to have an argument, cool. Like, I'll grab my popcorn and sit here.
Right.
But I think structure, again, coming from a guy that says that he's already terrible at habits and structure and routine, I will say that for the sake of NIL and for big programs to make a debut like that, the true impact does need to have more structure. Like, it can work right now. I'm sure it's working to many benefits to some programs, but it's also becoming a insurmountable mountain to climb when you look at staff, recruiting, any of that stuff across the board. Like, athletes are driven to go where the money goes.
Yeah.
And, it takes away from the college education element and experience of it. Like,
Yeah.
I can't sit here and lie to you and say, oh my gosh, my college education, I learned so much. I'm brilliant because of everything I learned.
Right.
But those 4 years, maybe plus, are experiences of your life that you learn, real life experiences. You grow into an adult. And I've always been a big proponent that, it's not so much about what you learn in the classroom, but it's what you learn through those 4 years or more in that curriculum structure that really drives you from growing from an 18-year-old to a whatever year old when you graduate. And it helps you really understand what you want to do. Like, we're fortunate enough to look at university as kind of a grooming and evolving place. Too often it's an argument of, now, am I making money or am I going in debt for it? Or, like, what is the value prop? Like, what am I going to get out of it? And again, it's a discussion that I could probably write a book on, but I'm just far too lazy to.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, how it changes the landscape of it. And because, I hear people, well, now it's just all about the money. And so, like, there's no heart in the sports. And so it's not going to be as good to watch. They're going to turn. Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting to see how it continues to change and adapt. And yeah, I hope it continues, and I hope everything goes good with it. It was always more fun to watch college sports because they cared just so much about the game, right? Because there was no money involved, and so it'll be interesting to see how big a shifts we see with that side of things. But yeah, so this has been, Andrew, great conversation. I appreciate you shared. It's just interesting to me, because we've only worked with a handful of athletes with what we do, because it's not our main kind of pathway. So curious from your direction, who, if you're looking at athletes out there right now, who would you say is doing it right or doing it the best as far as marketing and building their brand and putting themselves out there?
I don't think there's one quintessential example I
Okay.
can throw at you. I think there's a lot of different examples.
Sure.
And it depends on how you evaluate success.
Okay. Yep.
I have some clients that have been able to capitalize on having 40 to 50,000 followers on Instagram, and they have really double down not on growth, but to really engage with that audience. And with that, they're able to launch things like programming apps and
Oh, cool.
custom merchandise lines and diet and nutrition stuff. And they make a ton of money. And it blows my mind because I'm just like, holy crap! Like you only get 40,000 followers. Like Under Armour and Reebok and all these companies think they can come. They think, oh, I can just give you pennies on the dollar. And it's like, dude, we're 10xing offers like that just to
Yeah.
let their own IP. So I look at athletes like that can understand very diversified revenue streams and how to capitalize on it as brilliant, brilliant individuals.
Yeah.
Uh, the other side to it is really just putting your IP to work for you. And what I mean by that is that we have some athletes that have massive followings, and
Mhm.
in their respective sports worlds, they're Godzilla. Like they're great.
Yeah.
The issue that they typically run into is they're like, how come I cannot get a clothing sponsor anymore? How come I can't get a protein sponsor? What they don't realize is that they have such a big following that they outgrow the market. And
Yeah.
it's really fascinating because, you see some athletes that'll settle, they'll take whatever offer that they can get. And again, from the brand side, you can't get mad at them. If an apparel company can sign somebody for $50,000 and they have 8 million followers, like great.
Yeah.
Uh, but the reality of it is that truly understanding your value and being confident enough to know that your value can derive and grow is critical. And we've had one athlete over the years that they have kind of outgrown their own respective market in some ways, and they've done merchandise drops, they've white labeled different products. And
Yep.
again, you're now looking at, which we typically don't love, but it's an affiliate model where
Yep.
having to put up upfront capital in order to gain money back. But it's what's best for business because the value exchange is that you're now tied to a hard asset and good far beyond what social media can put out there day in and day out.
Sure.
So, again, people start wearing your t-shirts and they're drinking your protein shakes and they're wearing your shoes. Like that is stuff that lasts the test of time, right? So
Yep.
so again, like I always encourage athletes to be very well-rounded in thought, to think far beyond just what the one-dimensional process is of like, oh, like I just need to do this. Like, I need to do sponsorship deals. I need to make AdSense from YouTube. Like, many people look at what they're doing so small and one dimensional. And then it blows my mind that I actually get to work with some clients that are just like, hey, okay, we just got $10,000 to do one social post. So I want to take $6,000 and I want to put that into an IRA Roth and I want to grow that 2%. And I'm just like, whoa. I'm like, this is amazing. Like you
Yeah.
get business. So, again, it's just understanding the business aspect of it, which is, it's hard to teach people because, we have a lot of resources to do it. But at the end of the day, they need to be inquisitive enough to be open to even being led to water in some ways.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. And have you seen any athletes and brand collaborations that you're like, wow, that's super smart move? Have you seen any out there recently? Or the opposite? Oh man, that's probably going to be a really bad one. Obviously, it's hindsight looking at it before it happens, but
Yeah. I mean, of course, like the short answer is yes to
yeah,
both. Um,
sure,
I don't really like, I don't want to say airing dirty laundry, but
sure.
you certainly raise your eyebrow at some stuff, and
Mhm.
you know, and an example I'll give you is endemically we see some brands come into different sports, and whether
Yeah.
it's working with our athletes or not, um, I kind of keep a very open mind
Mhm.
to understanding and analyzing like why is this brand working with this athlete.
Mm,
But
okay.
the hard part for me as an agent is going back to what I said. People just want to work with people they like.
Yeah.
So if a brand starts working with X athlete or X number of athletes, but I notice that those athletes are represented by one agency, I'm
Mhm.
like, damn. Like, that's going to be a tough one to break down. Like, yeah, I have a lot of great athletes that could be a great fit, an even better fit probably for that brand, but you're not going to break down the third wall of that relationship sometimes.
Right.
So, relationships play a really big role into all of this stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I would say the most frustrating part is that it's a constant race to the bottom in terms of term of partnerships. We get so many inquiries for people that want to do like one-off deals, and what I always tell people is like, what are you looking to accomplish for the one-off deal? Like
Yeah.
one social post and two stories. Like, what are
Right.
you really looking to accomplish? Now, if they tell me that they want to sub-license the content and run digital ads for a period of 3 to 6 months, at least I can feel more confident that they have a digital team in house that knows what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So it really just varies. Like, to be honest with you, Chris, like there's a lot of great things out there right now that you wouldn't even second guess to look at how great they are. But
Yeah.
then on the other side to it, like there's a lot of things that look great where on the infrastructure and everything in between, they're brutal. And those are typically the ones that if you pay close enough attention, you'll see like an athlete that just starts posting aggressively about a brand or a partnership or something where it's like
Yeah.
you cannot see their page now without them tagging the brand. And you're just like,
Sure.
holy crap, like when did this become a Pepsi app? Like what on earth? And that's where brands sometimes will just leverage and buy their audience. Like they're basically pushing the ambassador to the side to get to the audience.
Yeah.
And that way of doing business isn't beneficial to anybody long term.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. I like that. And it's a good thing if people remember when they're seeing all these things. Again, Andrew's been great. I've enjoyed just kind of hearing and thinking because again, the athletic side is something we don't work heavily in, and so it's just interesting, being from the outside, kind of just seeing everything um, changing and shifting, and then getting your perspective and what as we won't say expert, but a very because you don't like that word, but a very prominent figure in the industry has been really cool to kind of just learn from you and hear your story and the journey of it. And um, is there anything you would say? I know kind of this is a generic thing, but to someone who I know, and we kind of mentioned it, wants to get in to do something like what you do, besides networking and knowing their value, uh, maybe something on the lines of like how to keep going when it seems hard. Is there anything you would tell them?
Yeah. I mean, this is a good thing to remember for so many people right now that are going through tough times to try to find jobs or new roles and transitions. Because again, I'm sure just like you, I get on LinkedIn and my whole feed is just
Yeah.
people looking for jobs and complaining and, just airing stuff out inappropriately. And I'm just like, goodness gracious, like this is not how to do it. I get you're frustrated, but this is not how to do it. The number one thing that any of us can do, whether it's in business, professional, or personal endeavors in our life, is we need to go find problems and we need to embrace them and find solutions for them.
Yep.
All too often, we are hardwired to avoid problems. Why? Because they're difficult, they're challenging, they cause frustration, stress, all the negative things. But true leaders are the ones that embrace problems head on and they find proposed solutions like never before.
Yeah.
For me, every day I am either approached with a new set of problems or I take it upon myself to go find new problems. And I always try to challenge myself to at least think about what type of solution I could put forward, whether it's through my own resources or beyond. And I very much do that same thing with my team. It's like very easy to get bogged down with problems and to let them like anchor you and cement you in.
Yeah.
But high level thinking in terms of what solutions that you can bring to people's problems is a critical element in trying to find your next role, whether it's in sports, whether it's in the job market, whether it's in life. Always be open enough to look at other people's problems and address them very politely, very professionally, but very creatively. And I think those that can look at, again, this world that we live in today and again, rewire their thinking appropriately, they're going to be the ones that are most successful, because the people in sports and the people finding the jobs in sports right now, they're not making their resumes to be, oh, here's my one pager, here's, what I've done. What they're seeing is, hey, I saw an article, or I went to a game, or I saw this interview from your GM, and they were addressing what's something that you're working on going into the next season. And I wanted to put together just 3 high level thinking and thoughts and analytical strategy for you to just marinate on, so that you can understand where my thinking and approach goes.
Nice.
I guarantee you 8 times out of 10, you'll get a job interview. I put my career on it.
That's awesome. I think that's a great piece of advice. Very actionable, very, detailed too, not just, the perfect words. So I like that. And I like your approach to that too, Andrew. I really do appreciate your directness and openness and truthfulness too. And so this, again, has been a great conversation. I'm excited for everyone to kind of digest this on their own. But if people want to connect with you, learn more from you, or maybe we've got athletes out here listening, who knows, and they want to connect with your agency, where's the best place for them to go connect with you and learn more?
Yeah, I mean, we're the Athelo Group across all social channels, Athelo Group. Our website, it's our baby. We put so much hard work, and we update it daily. Case studies, new athletes, our roster, media kits. That's athelogroup.com. So again, if you need to contact me directly, again, hit me up on LinkedIn. My email is pretty easy to find as well. Otherwise, I can't thank you enough for the time, Chris. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on, and everyone listening to this. I know you got something out of it, so I'm excited for you to go out there, continue your journey, share this with someone else that it can help. We can make a bigger difference in the world by doing that. And make sure you follow and leave a little rating for the show. Helps us keep going as we're journeying on to 500 episodes. But I appreciate everybody listening. Until next time, continue to go out there, elevate your life, elevate your brand, and we'll talk to you again soon.